No, I'm kidding. It's okay. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to Code Sins. How's everyone tonight? You doing good? All right. Yeah, we'll get into what Code Sins is in just a minute, assuming I can get this slide to move forward, which I can't. Oh, there we go. Hi. I'm Jen McCown, as I said. Yeah, I've been a SQL Server DBA and developer for give or take 10 years now. I'm the other half of MidnightDBA.com, and while I'm sure that you're all avid fans and you've read absolutely everything we've written and everything else we've ever videoed, I'll go ahead and give are the HR people still here? Oh, that was going to be my in. They don't know me, so I'll tell them. All right. Well, Midnight DBA, if you haven't been, we do IT training videos on Windows, SQL Server, PowerShell, all kinds of great stuff. Whatever we feel like, really. That's really distracting. You know, when I'm at home filming, he'll sit there and play with the slinky in the background. It's like, stop! We do training videos. I blog. We've got a couple of really great podcasts. I have to say it right, because my podcast is a blogcast, audio only. I read our blogs, occasional guest blogger. Fun stuff. The really fun one is the web show. The latest one, we sat down with a couple of guys and talked about the round of plagiarism that's been going around online, the SQL community. Yeah, I've got a couple of people nodding. You following that on Twitter?
Actually, I found it somewhere.
Like Ren Ozar's blog or Denny Cherry's blog? Yeah. Those are the two best ones. Ozar. But I sat down with Denny, who was... Yeah, I sat down with Denny, who was the guy that found... We sat down, sorry. It was just me. And this is the cameraman. And we got to have a really good rant about it. That's our latest DBAs at Midnight web show. So anyway, off the website. It's free, so I can talk about it all night, and you have to listen. All right, so... I got to do this now, too. All right, so why Code Sins? Code Sins are really...
Mic yourself.
Huh?
Mic yourself.
Oh, is it off? Hello?
Oh, it's just not high.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's split down.
I mic myself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Ah, that's better. Sorry about that. And if I turn to the left, it's louder. So, Code Sins, bad habits and guilty pleasures. We all, we all make mistakes, sure, and we all get into bad habits, get a little lazy about something, or, well, I've never heard of that, so I'm not going to bother with it. It's good to look at these things directly and see, what are the causes? What are we going to actually experience if we neglect this, for example? Now, why am I uniquely qualified to talk about code sins? I got 3 good reasons. One is I've done a fair amount of contracting, and I go into a shop, and almost always when you step into a new shop, you step into a whole pile of interesting work to be done. So there's that. The second one is that I've committed most of these code sins myself at one time or another. So, and the third and the best reason is that by definition, a code sin is something that really irritates me. So there you go. That's why. First code sin we're going to talk about tonight is coding ugly. And no, that guy's not a relative of mine.
Sean's.
Yeah, no, not Sean's either, actually. But that was good. Here, get that man. I don't have anything up.
After a DBA's after.
Yeah, sure. But no, that's not either of us. Ugly code causes delays, causes confusion, causes oversights. You're nodding. Why are you nodding? Tell me your story. You don't want to tell the story. Okay, we'll assume that someone very, very close to you in your department has done something horrible. But save that story up, because at the end we're going to have a nice little talk, and we're all going to get up and vent, have a little revival, Code Sins revival, and somebody will get a really awesome book. So 2 elements to coding ugly. And the first one, I need to click both of them. First one is formatting. Oh, I hear some people weeping in the audience already. Yeah. Anybody open up something and see start procedure, see it like that? I'm seeing nodding. Wow. I'm not the only person. I feel better now.
That could be the editor. We're not a
Yeah, sure.
That could be the editor too.
That could be the editor? No. This is, I had to do this on purpose, as a matter of fact. So yeah, this is horrifically ugly. If you open this up in a shop, you're going to weep. Oh yeah, that's the prize at the end. Thank you. I've got a showgirl. I've got a pointer. Or one line. This is actually only this way because I've got word wrap on, and I have this right here. So let's turn off word wrap and see how pretty that is. It's not particularly, what is it, keyboard? No, text editor, thank you. File extensions, all languages. There we go, word wrap. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, that's the fun one. Everybody loves that. So what's the real problem with this, right? It's hard to read, of course. But
Plus, if you're paid by the line.
if you're paid by the line, it's not good. Absolutely, that's a great point. We actually talk about being paid by the line later on. So this code right here, this will actually run. Let's take a look at that. Oh, look at that. Yeah, exactly. I only wrote, it was a 3-line SP. But yeah, look at that. That runs because I made sure that it would. That's horrible, and nobody wants to look at that. In the English language, I would say all languages, but I mean, I think some languages do something that I don't know about. Well, you know, you got the languages that go up and down, and I don't know if they have section breaks and stuff. So, like in English, I know for sure we tend to break up the language into different scopes of white space. We've got words, we've got sentences, we've got sections, chapters, and that's all because we don't absorb information 50 pages at once. We absorb it a thought at a time, a concept at a time, an overall overview. Yeah, that'll do. At a time. And you want to do the same thing in code, of course. Let's look at something slightly prettier. This is giving me a headache. So that's the wrong one. Well, close enough. It's still pretty. I was going to show it to you without code first, right? But isn't that lovely? Just nice and white spaced and listed out. That is something you can look at and say, okay, here's a statement. Awesome. So, what was I going to say? This is my first time speaking, so if I pause and get lost and stare into space, that's why. You got to bear with me and like throw things at me. Pay attention. Yeah, well, you're the only one that doesn't get to throw anything about me. So, okay, so that's the bad code. And we'll look at... Throws balls. Don't throw your balls at me. Okay, so that's much better. We're happy about that. This is way easier to understand, we had a talk when I was developing this about standards. Some people get really enthusiastic about formatting. They say, "Oh yeah, let's make a standard like Sean was talking about, and everybody will do it the same way. And we'll have everybody do a space before their commas, and it'll all be this many." And that's going a little overboard, and you know that nobody's going to keep up with it, and you don't even want to write that document that says you have to do this. Just general, if you have a team, say, okay, general good standards, and if that's not good enough, go out and get yourself a code formatter. Like, for example, okay, I got to say this before I pimp this product. Redgate hasn't given me a dime. They haven't asked me to do anything. I actually love SQL Prompt this much that I will spend time in my presentation talking about it. You get SQL this much, as long as that string is, because any piece of crap formatted code you get SQL Prompt, it's right here, and 3 keys later, it does that for you. This has saved my hide at more than 1 gig, because you open up an SP, you've got everything completely left aligned, and you go boop, 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 everything's beautiful again. So that's the answer to, if you're dying for standards, just use that. All right, moving right along, Fozzie.
Question.
Yes.
I kind of nodded there for a second. What was it you said about departments and standards?
Departments and standards. I was just saying that I wouldn't necessarily go crazy trying to force everybody in your department to do really exact standards of formatting. If you get really crazy for formatting, if they're mature, seasoned developers, you can say, come on, guys, let's not be ridiculous. And if not, then just forget them, get yourself a formatter, and every time you open up an SP, you can do it yourself. No, I see. Our daughter's calling. In the middle of my presentation, of course.
Figures.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? She doesn't talk to me anyway.
So does SQL Prompt install in Management Studio just like that?
Yeah, you run the SQL Prompt installer. It's got a free 14-day download, so you can go and get it, download it, try it out, and it'll show up in an SMS like this. And then it's also it's more than just a formatter, I should say. It's got code recognition and autocomplete, IntelliSense. Thank you. I never think of that, but I turn that off because we've got some measure of IntelliSense in SMS 08 anyway. So yes. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, it actually is sensitive about views. It doesn't format views for you, but I get around that, and I've complained to Redgate about this too. So I think they're looking at it for next edition. Yeah. Yeah, well, you have to, it doesn't automatically format for you. You have to tell it, I want to format this code. And you can take just a section of code if you want to. Here, let's unformat that. And say, I don't want to format all of that. All I want is to format that. And as long as it's a full, valid SQL statement, it'll format just that. So yeah, if you have a whole document with like a declare or an alter view in it, you don't have to. The way I get around it with views is to ignore the create view as statement, just highlight the select statement, and it'll do it normally. So that's my pimping of.
Have they implemented the templates yet or not? Like you created, because right now, I mean, I can see that they ran it. He formatted in his own whatever way.
In its own way, it's customizable.
Yeah, it's customized.
It is customizable. You can go into, no, not that one. It does have snippets, by the way, but it does have options, and you can say, okay, I want reserved words in lowercase. I want this and that. But we should jump on a little bit. But yeah, SQL prompt is a lot of fun. I like it. All right, close that down. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is I lost my word. Is documentation. And now I know everyone has been looking forward to this. You were saying, oh God, she's doing code sins. Let her talk about documentation, please. So we're there. All right, why does doing documentation suck so much? No, I'm serious. It's time consuming. It's a real pain in the butt to generate. Anything else? It's boring. God. All that stuff you have. Are you in a shop that's really, really burdensome with you have to have this and this and this? And I've been in those shops. Those are a lot of fun. Any other concerns with documentation?
It feels like you're copy pasting the same thing again in a different language.
Yeah, you're copy pasting the same thing again and again, and it's like, why would you do that? And why would anyone read that, right? So we've got a few things to say about why documentation sucks. It's a pain to create, it's a pain to maintain. Let's go over a couple of these guys real quick. The real solution for me for documentation is comments. Comments in your code. Did you see how heavily I had this little bitty nothing stored procedure commented? Look at that header. Oh my God. What did I do? Why did I do that? So it's a pain to create. Well, you can get around that, the tech documentation portion of it, by doing it as you go along. I'm creating a new stored procedure, or I'm modifying an existing one. Put in a note. Here in this section, I'm going to do this. This was a little bit funky. Why did I do this way? Well, I did this way because of the thing. If you type in your comments like you're explaining it to the new guy, then when the new guy comes on, or when a new team member comes onto the team, that's a new guy, then you don't have to sit down with them and spend 20 minutes going, okay, this is what, trying to remember back 6 months ago why you made this change, why I'm doing a select into instead of an insert into. Pain to maintain. Same thing. Anytime you have to go in and change the stored procedure, change the comments. There you go. One I've actually heard before, and I'm surprised I didn't hear it here, but we kind of skipped over the discussion portion a little. I'm afraid I'll document myself out of a job. Well, if I write everything down, they don't need me anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, Sean says, that's true. Well, I wasn't talking about me. I was talking about, someone else.
Or they won't call you back to consult after you leave.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, that doesn't really apply. We kind of think it does, but companies, you kind of notice they don't really care about documentation. Either they require too much and nobody reads it, in which case they don't care, or they require nothing and nobody reads the nothing, in which case they don't care.
That doesn't apply to schema documentation.
Schema documentation, by that you mean?
Well, the purpose of a stored procedure, view, function, purpose of the table, the purpose, the description of each one of the columns, what type of data, of scope of the data in each of the columns.
Right. Yeah, noting all that down as you go along.
It is very useful data or information.
Well, it's very
A lot of
useful
people
data.
don't like to do either.
Well, it's not just stored procedures. We're going to have a little talk about SIS packages as well. And, you can keep comments in some of these other structures, but for the ones that you don't want to, who actually, you may not actually have people go in looking at the code of a table that you've created, for example. It's up to you. You can do kind of the same thing. Implement a wiki. And then, it's not as ideal as in a stored procedure, but, when you go and modify a table, make a little note in the wiki.
That's actually an interesting discussion. I had a talk with somebody at Microsoft about this very recently. He was asking me if I thought they should extend the extended property system.
That's what we
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's great, but nobody uses it. Nobody ever looks for column information in there because nobody uses the extended properties to put stuff in. I agree, it's great, but nobody uses it.
Yeah.
No,
Now you use it and people actually go there for, we're talking about extended documentation for reference.
I use SQL Spec, which basically
Oh,
creates
yeah.
CSM and PDFs
That's nice.
out of it. And also, that's also how I use to flag where PII information, personal information.
Right.
Identification. You can use extended properties just to flag them. specific
You can.
column or table.
It's not as easy and natural as say putting it in a stored procedure, but you have to do something, absolutely. So that's just going to come down to what's going to work best for you, and your environment. Is it going to be using, I'm trying to say SQL CHM, but is it going to be using a tool and extended properties? Is it going to be putting a wiki in place, just keeping a document on SharePoint? Yeah, that always works.
See, I even go crazier than you do. I put, if I've got an SP that's being called from several places, like it's being called from a job or from a web page or something, I'll always put where it's being called from in the top of it. So
Yeah, that's one of the things.
You know how it ties into things.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I managed to miss when I put it in here. But and nobody reading your documentation, well, when they have to open up the stored procedure to modify it, the comments are right there. How could they miss it? I can always document when the project is through. All right, hands up. Anybody who actually puts off their documentation and really does it at the end of a project. I'm serious. You actually do it. Okay, of the 4 of you that raised your hand, how many of you do it because your boss told you to? Okay, we got 3 hands that weren't up before. So the 3 or 4 of you that put your thank you. The 3 or 4 of you that put your hands up and you do it yourself, you guys are the exception to the rule, and bless you. Thank you very much for attending to your documentation. However, I will say that it might behoove you to at least put down notes while you're going through your project, because you do tend to forget things. You forget the context in which we made this decision. We have to do this funky thing in here because the business owner said that this new procedure is in place only until the end of the month, so forth and so on, right? And don't need it anyway. That's in there because some of the things I put in here, I'm stunned that I put in here, but they were real life things. I was in a gig recently where somebody was talking to me, and I said, okay, well, let me get to know the data model. Where's your documentation? Well, we don't really have any. Okie dokie, well, who do I sit down with? Oh, well, you can really get to know most of our business rules, most of how we process things, by just looking at the schema. Really? Really, I can figure out everything that you're doing by looking at the tables and the stored procedures. You've implemented every possible use case you possibly could, and it's that clear. I bumped the computer down here, and now it's poking my knees. And now it's absolutely that clear. Yeah, no, it's not. It was a really horrendously big, complicated. They had this nightly load process that was absolutely insane, and we'll touch on that a little bit later too. So you don't need documentation. That's kind of a conversation stopper right there. That's somebody I'm not sure that you'd be able to evangelize.
The one thing I learned at my first job that they taught me is don't put down what you do in your documentation, put down why you do it.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's nice. The comment was to put down what you do, and why you do what you do, and not what you do. So, why did I do this way?
You
Yeah.
can see what you're doing, but you can't understand why they did it. Because like one time, a long time ago, I had to compare data a bit within a byte.
Uh-huh.
How was I doing that?
Yeah, there's things that we have to do in code that's like, oh my God, why am I doing this? And we have to explain it to ourselves later on 8 months down the road. I'm going to open up this thing and go, why did I do that? That's horrible. Oh my God, was I drinking when I wrote this? So, all right, so that's lovely. That's a big old hunk of comment right there. We had talked, yeah.
If you format your embedded comments a certain way, are there software packages you can download that'll snarf that all up and turn it into like a file?
I am personally not aware of any. Guys, the question was, is there a software package that'll snarf up all your comments and pull them out for you?
Kind of like Sandcastle on Visual Studio?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know of anything, but
You have, Redgate has one called
SQL Doc.
Doc something.
SQL Doc.
SQL Doc doesn't actually extract, from what I've seen, it does not, I was using it today, it doesn't extract the comments out of your code. What it does is it goes through for every object and it creates a CHM or a Word doc or something with the specs like you would get from SP help and maybe some dependencies and things like that. But I know what you're talking about because I've thought of that, and I'm thinking it would be fairly easy to generate. Let's all call our local happy software companies and say, write me this and I'll buy it.
Does anybody know of a software company? Anybody at all?
Of a software company that makes a software that snarfs that. You knew what I
Embarcadero
meant.
has something,
Embarcadero has.
that you can go in and document everything, and it has like the permissions you set, jobs, people, that type of thing, but it doesn't extract the comments.
Right, and that's the big thing is the extracting the comments, because that really is your usable code. I say it's not necessarily that hard if you do have to produce some nice, pretty Word document style documents to grab all your code, maybe even read it out of sys comments.
Now, I create a report out of Embarcadero for the auditors.
Right. Documentation for auditing doesn't even enter in this discussion because that's documentation that's not meant to be useful. It's just meant to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Because I don't think anybody looks at it. I just have to create it and put it on the site.
Yeah. You just have to stick it out there just in case somebody feels like coming along. That's a terrible thing. All right. So we talked about code as relates to regular English text. If you have a book that's just solid lines beginning to end, oh God, you're not going to read that. If it's all just paragraphs and no sections or chapters, again, you're not going to read that. Books have really developed navigation and absorption of material down to a science, especially tech books. So we can really model our SPs off of that when we're going for comments. We've got section headers, and may I say, while declare variables is simple and obvious and it's perfectly okay, on its own, update read type columns is not a good header because that's just what we're doing, update readable type. You're just repeating what's in the code. I can see that. I get around that either by working at getting a decent heading going or by saying, here's my little explanation. But we should kick this up a little bit. So you've got your sections. As long as you've got your sections, copy paste them into a little table of contents up at the top. How beautiful is that? If you opened up a stored procedure and you saw a table of contents at the top, you would just be delighted. You'd go home and tell your mom about it. Mom, you wouldn't believe this. What else does a book have that helps you navigate? We've got a title, but the title's already there. We've got an author. Everyone's familiar. Put your name in there. Publish date. We've got tech books these days are putting in contact information. Copyright information. You guys copy your code. Copyright your code. Little blurb on the back jacket, right? Describe what it's for. An introduction. I like to give an author's perspective of what this is for and what was going on at the time, like we talked about. And then this is where the metaphor breaks down, example executions. And then I think you said, what was the other thing that you
Where's the
said?
reference from?
Where is it called from? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
Also, change log.
a change log, yeah. I think, did I put that down there? Oh,
Who changed it, date, and what was the change?
yeah, I did have a modification log, I swear. I didn't make it. Oh, you know where it is? It's in the, oh my God, Jen, I don't want to type all of this all at once. Keep a copy of a header template. Copy paste. Or go to your last stored procedure, copy it out of there, change. I tend not to do that so much because if I copy it out of the last stored procedure, I'm just going to carry that same description throughout my procedures. All right.
That's like code review.
Code review. Oh. Where do you work? Can I work there? You have code reviews?
Yeah, we're looking for people.
Okay, talk to me after and hire me. Yeah, well, no, real code reviews. Okay, we'll talk about code reviews later. Let's skip on down the line, right? All right, so we've talked thoroughly about documentation. There's nothing else to say about it. Please, God, let that be all there is to say. Real quick, Sean has this really excellent video. That's him over there. On Midnight DBA, commenting tribal knowledge in SIS packages. It will really change the way you think about comments inside your SIS packages. That's all I'm going to say because you should go watch it instead of listening
We're
to me
going to
talk
talk
about
about it
it.
next month anyway. So.
Are you really?
You
Wow.
actually had comments today also, right, in your SysPack or something?
Oh, yeah, did you? Did you have
Sorry?
You didn't-
He asked if you had comments today in your coding packages. I think that was mostly notes to himself. Yeah.
Never notes to myself.
Code Sin 2, coding dumb. I'm not calling you guys dumb. I'm not even calling me dumb, which would be slightly more forgivable. Yeah, sure. You don't have to know everything about SQL. Nobody does. I don't know a quarter of the things to know about SQL, right? But ignorance of the law, especially the basics, is really no excuse. And you'll see what I mean when we get into this. I love that. I really do. Okay, moving on. All right, Code Sin 1. You don't understand the data model. While this one sounds really, really obvious, I think it's something that we do more than we think. One of the big things that feeds into this is not having adequate documentation. So why it's terrible? The data will be wrong because you're pulling from the wrong tables or you're pulling it in the wrong way. Queries will be slow because you're not going to necessarily find the shortest path between this table over here and how it joins to this table over here. If you fully understand the data model, if you talk to your SMEs, look at whatever documentation there may be, it's going to speed up your development time because you don't have to hunt around and play Sherlock Holmes inside your database. Sorry, brain fart. Anyway, things will go well. I know I had something more on that. Oh, wow, I actually have a demo. I'm so good. All right.
Is that what that little yellow dot is?
Is that what the little yellow dot is? No, the yellow dot is just a little yellow dot. Where is my... That's cursors are bad. Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be looking at some diagrams, because diagrams are fun, right? All right, one of the simple things that we're all pretty used to is having a table with a foreign key to another table, right? And the foreign key has a different name, you know? And in this case, it might not even be associate ID, which would be fairly common, but CEO ID to ID and then contact ID. We can figure that out pretty easily, you know? Okay, well, what? You know. Well, the big thing is being able to go in and look at your relationships and see, oh, okay, good. Whoever designed this database has properly done their referential integrity, and I can see that there's a foreign key here and a foreign key here. Or I have wonderful documentation. Keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? I have great documentation, and I can tell what's going on. Another one that's a little bit more tricky. This one was a lot of fun. This was a real life example. It happened to me. I was there. So we had this table, and we'll simplify the example. We'll say the Mox associate table. During the nightly load, this was that complicated one I was talking about. They had this loop within loop within loop within loop structure of calling stored procedures for various things over here and over there. Very, very complicated. And I had to go in and modify one of the stored procedures that affected it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I could do that. So it depended on the is vectored column, and I was having some trouble really figuring out what was going on with that and where it was altered. So I went to the guy that knew. And we sat down and looked at it together for about half an hour, and he finally said, oh, yeah, that's right. This actually means something different at step 13 of the process than it does at step 22. I said, what? What do you mean? Well, at step 13, what it means is that these rows in here should be processed through this other what did he say? It was a tangent process, I think he said. But later on at step 22 or whatever it was, it means that that person is a member of the is vectored department or club. And I'm like, really? So knowing your data model has the benefit, you're looking at me in disbelief. You've never heard of such a thing before. That's good.
It took like 20 minutes to explain it to me.
It took a while. I hope I summarized that okay. The basic thing, the thing to take away is it meant something different at this point in time than it meant in this point in time, which is itself a cardinal sin, but I didn't have the strength to actually write that down inside the presentation. So, yeah, know your data model. Databases model businesses. Business people make the rules. Data professionals generally aren't in charge of determining when the financial year ends or what associates qualify at what level and so forth. And we're going to move on because I think you guys get it. Do you get it? Do you have any questions? Comments? Stories? Stories. Games. Plenty of stories. Well, you can, if you want, you can save them up for the end and then and try to win a book. All right.
There's another golf ball.
There's another golf ball? Where's the golf ball? Oh, I see. It's Picard himself. You made Picard face palm. This is an actual, again, real-life quote from a real-life person that I real-life worked with in real life. It was a project I had been brought on for specifically because they were having severe performance problems. They were coming up really quick on their go-live date. And it was bad. I mean, you would have a small load test go on it, and it would just crash. Everything would blow up. So I said, okay, well, let me get to know the system. Where's the documentation? No documentation. Can't go 3 words without saying documentation. All right, so I went and talked to the architect, and I said, hey, I took a look at your data model, and I was wondering, you did these things it was an unusual way. Why did you do this? And he answered me, and then I asked him the next question, and the next one, and the next one, and he started getting really, really, really defensive. I was being as nice as I could. And finally, he got really huffy at the last question, and he said, well, we weren't coding for performance. That's another conversation stopper, as it turns out. I had nothing else. If you're not coding for performance, you're really going to get exactly that, not performance. All right, click it again. So, okay, you don't have to every single time squeeze every little bit of optimization out of your queries. Nobody has time for that. But that's completely a different matter from not even taking it into consideration. If you don't know the basics, start with the basics. There's no sin in that. Sin number 1 is avoid cursors. Before we go, oh, I've got nods. I love it when you guys nod. We'll actually start a demo on that, and then while it's running, talk about the rest of it. That's the double hit demo. Oh, here we go. I titled this "Cursors Are Bad," okay? I wish it showed all the way. There we go. Cursors are bad, okay? All right, so little tiny bit of schema here, little tiny bit of data model. Very simple. We've got buildings, and inside buildings we have rooms, and inside rooms we have seats, right? Very simple, very easy. And what we want out of this, is this my cursors are bad, okay? It is. What we want out of this is to say, I want to update all of my seats to append a gross in just building 2. Every seat in every room in building 2 is gross for whatever reason. And I'm going to put that in a begin tran just so that we can roll it back if we feel like it. That came back pretty fast. That was no problem. Let's roll it back so we can undo it. Okay.
What about y'all? Does that look like well-commented code to y'all?
Hey, this is a demo. This is for me. I'm explaining it. I purposefully left it uncommented so that we could interact more. Ha! How's that for thinking on my toes? So that was brilliant and wonderful. We're going to do drop clean buffers again so that the cache is clear. And we're going to do a little cursor, which just does the same thing. So up here, we even got just the code we needed up in advance. It's in the cursor that we only need building 2 rooms, right? So we go through there, and let's go ahead and run that. All right, while that's running, we'll go and I'm not cheating because we got the little timer down here. Let's talk about the rest that's on our, real quick, that's on our list. Avoid query hints. I might get a couple of you to nod at that, right? The SQL optimizer is, generally speaking, the engine is smarter than we are. So, if you force it to use this index over here instead of that one, you might want to take a look at your statistics, why it's not using the right index in the first place. Or, look at the data. Maybe the data that you're indexing isn't quite as selective as you thought it would be, right? No cluster duets. Can I get a nod? Anybody? Thank you. I got one in the corner. And a horse sound from Sean. For those who aren't familiar with them, I shouldn't even say anything, should I? I should just back away and just don't look it up. No, you should know the evils that are out there in the world. Unique identifier is the actual type. Everybody refers to it as GUID because unique identifier is too many syllables to say. It is a 16, I'm going to get this wrong, byte, 16 byte, thank you, I always try to say bit, 16 byte data type that is unique globally. It's unique across the entire universe. There's something like a trillion plus unique identifiers that can be generated. And so the odds of getting a duplicate are astronomical, which sounds really, really cool, and I'm going to use that. The problem is most of us don't need unique identifiers that are global across the entire world. We rarely need global identifiers that are completely unique across the whole database because we identify a column within the table itself, right? So to use something that big takes up extra space. But the big sin comes in because most people who overuse, and I'm stealing from later in the presentation, most people that tend to overuse GUIDs do it with clustered indexes. Well, this is unique, so it should be my primary key clustered index. Is everybody here familiar with the concept of fragmentation? Yes, no, kinda? Data is stored on pages, just like any other file in the database. When a page fills up, it has to be split into two pieces. GUIDs are random, so whenever one is generated and inserted, if it's inserted into a full page, it's going to have to split that page out. That happens constantly, and it causes huge fragmentation lots of time. All right, no clustered GUIDs. Don't do it. Only get the data that you need. A lot of the shops are going out and using select star when they shouldn't, or extra joins just because it looks pretty or whatever. Avoid nested subqueries. Can't always be avoided, but there are clever ways to code around it that work better. Avoid nested views. I had this argument with that same data architect that said, we don't code for performance. He said, well, that's not true. That doesn't hurt performance to use nested views. That's actually true. It doesn't hurt performance just to use nested views. But it hurts performance when you're using a view that selecting from views, that select from views, that select from views, that all get data that you don't need for your particular query. Or say, no, that's the good one actually. The other big thing about nested views is it's impossible to support. It's impossible to index for nested view. Okay, I've got a query that selects from a view, that selects from two views, that selects from 5 views, that selects from 4 other views. And I'm looking at that right now in the shop that I'm in, and you can't index for that. Moving along. Index for expensive queries.
One that I found the other day that my coworker created that's 8 levels deep on the views.
Oh, no.
And he started out in one base table and joined some tables to it. And then by the time he got up a few levels, he had eliminated some of the columns he needed.
Right.
So the next view, he rejoined back in the base table.
Oh, my God.
3 times.
Oh my God! And I've seen that. Just to recap for the mic real quick, an 8-level deep nested subquery that by the time it got up to the 4th or 5th level, dropped some columns and had to rejoin on the lower views. This is real life. This is for reals. Yeah, run from that kind of thing. Super serial, yeah. So I'm going to skip over the last few points, and if you have questions, just go, hey, wait, what about that one? Index on selective columns, covering indexes as appropriate. Don't over-index transactional databases. I mean, it sounds great. I'm gonna put an index on every column, and that way I'm covered. Yeah, but your inserts and updates are gonna go to heck and back. I'll say hell. Don't under-index reporting databases. Do regular index maintenances. Please use your proper zip code. All right. Oh yeah. Let's see if our thing has returned. Oh, it did. Oh, and this one was only 9 seconds. When I ran it before, it was like 3 minutes. But still, that's a table with, what did I say? That's 64,000 rows, and it came back the first time. No, I'm sorry. 1,800 rows to 9 seconds to update. This is a very, very small example of how bad cursors are. So there you go. You've had a real live demo. And somebody said, yeah, isn't that exciting? Coding for performance tools. Get familiar with execution plans. Grant Fritchie has an absolutely excellent book completely dedicated to execution plans. Can't recommend that enough. Grant Fritchie is an author and speaker. What's that? One of his pen names. Yeah, Sean actually writes all SQL books. There are no other authors. Set Statistics IO and Set Statistics Time. I don't like saying those out loud. It's too hard. Profiler. Server-side traces. I have. Yes?
Redgate, no.
Fritchie doesn't work for Redgate.
He has one that is free, and he's very good. Very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Actually, hang on a second. I'm actually.
He's coming next month?
Yeah, Brad Gahey. Yeah, we've got his book next month.
McGahey is, yeah.
Yes.
McGahey hasn't.
From Hawaii.
Yeah, it's not that he's in Atlanta right now. Server-side trace. Don't run Profiler on your performance on your production systems. It's a bear. Use server-side traces. If you don't know what those are, come to my website and see my video on server-side traces. I do have an article on SQL Serverpedia. Check out the big brain on Brad. Here, you get this guy. You've impressed me with your knowledge of us. Yeah. Yeah, Sean said it before. We take bribes. If you're gonna curry favor, we're all for it. Thanks, man. and perfmon and all that kind of good stuff. All right, I understand. Coding dumb, understand SQL Server. Again, nobody's going to know everything. I think I've skipped past. There we go. Oh, I see. I've got this whole big analogy that I completely skipped over. So a database is like an airplane. It only flies when, we'll skip past that. Understands, well, it was really clever, but it's all these words and things, and we don't need it. So is it kind of self-evident to say you should know SQL Server? Yeah, it kind of is, but we tend to kind of forget that in the course of doing what's right in front of us and doing our jobs. Now, I'm really preaching to the choir here because you guys are here, and almost all of you were in the early session too, so way to be. Good job. Your bill of health is clear.
Give yourselves a book.
Give yourselves a book. But some cool things that you might want to dig into if you haven't. The life cycle of a query is really cool. Unfortunately, the only name I really remember is Bren Ozar. Bren Ozar's new book has chapter 1 is really outstanding. Because you don't have a book, write a book and I can pimp your book. How many times have I said Midnight DBA as opposed to Bren Ozar?
I don't have a book under my name.
Fair enough. Sorry.
I want to be able to walk down the street and go to work and not be bothered.
I understand. You're a superstar. So Bren Ozar's new book, it's like SQL Server troubleshooting and internals. Wow, I got the name right.
Oh, it's not Brent's book. It's a collaboration.
It's a collaboration, but hush, don't make me throw you out. I've got bouncers waiting. The life cycle of a query and how it's picked up here and the cache here and the thing here, and it's really good stuff. How a query is parsed, how the SQL engine logically looks at a query. The select statement is actually next to last. It's the thing that looks at next to last. That's really cool. That's in one of Itzik Ben-Gan's books. And if I remembered which one, I'd tell you. I'll make a resource list for this and put it on the site. Know your data types. Know about unique identifier and how to avoid it. Know the limitations of each one and how, all that great stuff. Indexes, internals, lots of really good books on that. Kalen Delaney, Itzik Ben-Gan. Is it 10? Oh, okay, good. Where am I? Oh, wow. We got to start skipping along. All right. Don't go get data that you already have. We'll make this one quick. I had a demo, but this is good enough, right? What is wrong with this? Anybody? Close. Very close. Actually, they're very, very similar, but one is getting X and one's getting Z. Yeah, don't take 2 trips to the store to get 2 items. You don't go to Albertsons to get eggs, go home, and then go back and get your milk and go home. And actually, I have a simple demo and a slightly more complicated demo. And we're going to do the more complicated one because this is the advanced class, right? So let's prove that a double hit, which is what I call that, is bad, and a single hit is good. We've got our building example again, and what we want today is the ID numbers for 2 different rooms in the same building. So I've got this, and I know my room names, I just need the IDs, right? So here's my double hit. I need the room ID for room 15 that's in building 2, and I need the room ID for room 16 that's in building 2. And, we know that's going to run. It's going to return us 2 different room IDs. Hey, look at that. It was pretty fast too, right? But we can code this better. And there are a number of ways we can code it better. One of the ways I so happen to know that the 2 rooms are going to have different IDs, that there's only going to be one room number 15 in building 2, and only one room number 16 in building 2. So I can just take the min and max room ID in this particular case and get the 2 separate IDs. So that's our single hit. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to run them both together because of the variables. That came back pretty fast too. Yeah, no big deal. Who cares, right? Well, let's take a look. We had our statistics IO set on. Okay, well, if we go look at our messages, the double hit, wow, look at that. We proved it. It went out and it got the first query once, and then it went to the same table and it got the second query. Whereas in our single hit, la. We just saved ourselves half of what we were doing before, 50%. Yes, we have improved our query efficiency. You can put that on your resume. Improved query efficiency by 50%.
But
yes?
the problem I code is, I think it falls on the category of too cute.
The what falls under too cute?
The last one falls under the category that I would call too cute, in the sense that anybody else coming behind you It's going to look at that twice, and that may be 2 seconds too long, when you would see, probably could be resolved maybe clearer with a case statement. Or something.
There are absolutely better ways to do it.
Yeah.
I'm really not going for this is the best way to do it, so much as there are alternate means.
Sure.
And that you're absolutely right. This is not the best way to do this. There are case statements. If you really wanted to get technical, or if you had different situations, you might use over and partition by. Over and partition by.
I guess what I'm getting at is that clarity is sometimes better than.
Clarity is better than performance. You really want to say that out loud? If you had a prize from us, I'd take it away.
Sometimes clarity is better than performance.
What are you talking about? You just said you were coding for performance just now.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to actually disagree with you because that's what your documentation is for. That's part of why I stress that so hard. This is a database. This is something that we're asking to do a ton of work, and we want to do it absolutely. That's why we're so stingy with our variables and with our code. So anyway, I'm getting my 4-minute mark, so we really are going to absolutely fly through the last couple, and then you guys can tell your stories. Coding lazy, don't do it. Now, coding lazy is actually a good thing. We want to be lazy DBAs as long as it saves us work in a good way, right? That's a lot of caveats, but I think you guys know we want to take the shortest path to what we're doing as long as it doesn't muck up something else. One of the bad ways to code lazy is having a code crutch. If you fall in love with something and use it for everything, that's not always a good thing if you don't understand its limitations. I think you were saying yesterday that when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. Yeah, but everything's not a nail. A hammer's terrible at cutting wood. So these things there's nothing that's all-purpose. It doesn't exist. One of the other things that's coding lazy is blind code reuse. Copy-pasting code, reusing your code, that's good. Not taking a real good, close look at it, like go through and explain it to somebody, you're going to miss extra joins. You're going to miss extra where clauses. You're going to miss all kinds of things. Moving right along, Fuzzy. Coding lonely. Or coding arrogantly. It's kind of two sides of the same coin, right? And it says, I'm sorry, I can't hear you with the sound of how awesome I am if you're in the back row. Yeah, that is a little bit small. Sorry about that. But I do like saying that. There was an Obama one like that, too. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Coding lonely means, going maverick or going it alone. As DBAs, we tend to kind of keep to ourselves and leave me alone, mostly because people blame everything on us. But we got to kind of break out of that. And Tom LaRock's new book, DBA Superstar, did I say that right? No, DBA Rockstar, actually takes a whole chapter to talk about it's not socializing and interacting with other people. And it sounds kind of like, why would you? But it's a really good chapter and it's a really good concept. Don't code in a vacuum. Yeah.
If you're a sole DBA, you just talk to yourself or what?
No, I'm not talking about just talking to other DBAs. Your database reflects the business. Talk to business people. I had to do a report for a lady who was a secretary to the VP, and I said, okay, what do you do? How do you relate to the database? It was a great opportunity, and I learned a couple of things. All right.
You don't like them.
Going to have to either get over it or just interact with them once and then move on.
Move on.
Okay. I've done my due diligence. Check on Steve. Yeah, I've got a couple of those. Lost and confused. Get requirements. Getting requirements isn't as simple as going to the users and saying, what do you want? Well, what do you want? You got to kind of dig it out of them sometimes, and that's a fine line to walk. Moving on again. Get the whole picture. Lonely code. Do code reviews. And I'd love to wax poetic on that for a while, but we got to move on. So coding lonely. No one to play with. Well, again, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are here. You guys are interacting with your SQL community, and we've got a wide variety of options open to us. SQL Saturdays and conferences and all kinds of webcasts and so forth. You can get into a nice discussion of midnightdba.com. All right, so we've got lesson learned and seen. All right, this is the part of the show where you get to stand up. You've been holding it in until now. This story, this confession, this something. Tell me about what's been running through your head. Do you have any horrible stories? If not, you have to listen to me for 3 more minutes. David, do you have a story?
This is for the book.
This is for the book, yeah, the one I like best. It's all subjective. I give out the book.
My ERP system, my enterprise ERP system, has no primary or foreign keys.
No primary or foreign keys.
Not one.
That's decent. All right, who wants to try and top that? You never know what's going to get me. Yes, sir.
Same story. When I went to the subject matter expert, she said, I just don't like those. They clutter things up. It makes it too hard to change everything.
Yeah, those foreign keys all cluttering up my database. Get off my lawn. Yes, sir. I got another one.
So you relate to that? the tables by using natural keys? So you
Well,
just have to
no,
update
what
it?
they are is they're very denormalized. So they have this, they have the same columns in the tables repeated over and over
So
and
it's
over.
a natural key. You will use 3, 4, 5 columns to join each
I
other.
find it very non-natural.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me grab another one. Yes, sir.
Making databases as source control. Like I have seen some cases. All stored procs, they will be like they like whenever they get a new stored proc, they will rename it as everything.
Yes, databases as source control.
I like that.
I like that one.
I like that one.
I like that one a lot.
One more to add in, like in the stored.
One
In
more.
the stored procs, what they do is like they want to write a new 10 lines of code, modify one line. So they comment all the 10 lines they write.
Oh God.
So like that, like if you see a 2000 lines stored proc, almost 1000 lines is.
Oh my God. One more. This is my last one because I saw your hand raised, sir.
Our developers didn't like going to the DBA and going through code reviews for.
Oh yeah, that's a big pain. Code
They
reviews.
decided to put everything in XML so that they wouldn't have to go to the DBA anymore to add new data, new columns.
Oh my God. Oh my
I've actually
God.
seen something very similar to
You want a
that.
performance here?
I'm sorry. I got to give it to the XML guy. That was really, really good. But I got to give it to the XML guy. Come get your book, sir. Wow. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for coming along with me on my very first chapter.
Sean told me.
I'm not leaving.